Welcome to the Music Reel. I'm your host, Nicola Burton. I have the pleasure of speaking with internationally acclaimed New York Times best-selling author and global thought leader, Randy Gage. Randy, welcome to the Music Reel.
Hey, it's great to be on with you.
I'm very grateful that you've taken the time to talk to me. Let's start with, I'm in Brisbane in Australia. You're in Florida. What's it like right now over there?
We have a governor who kind of believes, like the president, that coronavirus is a hoax, and so everybody should just do whatever they want, and everything should be open, and nobody should wear masks, and we should damp down the figures and pretend they don't exist. So, I mean, there's still, there's still, I don't think, no nightclubs and theaters or really limited capacity. Like the building I live in, the condo, you're required to wear a mask. Most places you got to wear a mask. But there's really no big lockdown thing. So it's, everybody's getting by, figuring it out as they go along.
Who would have thought this would be 2020? It's so unbelievably unexpected. A part of me would like to go back to New Year's Eve and go, okay, this is what you need to do. I wanted to talk to you today because you're outside of the standard entertainment and arts industry narrative. And as an industry, look, we're independent, we're creative, we're innovative. We normally think outside the box and we kind of create our own way. Now, the challenge for us is that outside of the box, as you say, is still subject to government restrictions. So you've got millions of arts workers across the globe unable to earn any sort of significant income. So I really wanted to talk to you because you inspire and motivate people. How do these arts workers leverage this experience to still create their own economy and don't participate in this looming depression?
Well, so let's challenge a couple of assumptions, right? Assumption number one, which is, hey, artists are out of the box people anyway, and we're used to being out of the box. What if I challenge that assumption and I say, you know what? I think sculptors still sculpt the way today that they did 500 years ago. I think that the opera houses run their operations the same way they did a century ago. I think the painter who wants to paint or the artist who wants to draw maybe approaches it the same way that everybody's been doing it for 50 years, 150 years, right? Maybe, what is the thing? Well, okay, I'm a dancer, so I'm going to go on a lot of auditions and maybe I can get on a Broadway show or a London show if it's a dance show, or maybe I could get accepted into a dance troupe, right? Or if we say, okay, I'm really a visionary, I'm totally outside of the box, I'm going to create my own dance company. Well, okay, I think Debbie Allen did that. I think Arthur Ailey did that. I think, 10,000 other would-be artistic directors did that. So our artists, and I'm putting myself in this category, I'm a writer. So I'm an artist in my own vein. And are we really outside of the box? Are we still trying to do everything the way it always was, right? I just got a text from a buddy of mine in London. Him and his lover they were at dinner and then they were going to some kind of a Shakespeare in the Park kind of thing. Not in the park, it's actually in a venue, he told me, and they were doing 25% capacity. And he's like, man, the arts. And I'm like, dude, the number of opera companies and dance studios and dance companies and whatever that are blown up are staggering. And I get that. But I also have to say, well, okay, are we really being out of the box? Are we really approaching this new reality the way we could be and maybe should be, facing the fact that, hey, yes, absolutely. I mean, none of us were ready for this. None of us expected of it, right? We all think it's unfair. it's the cruel universe punishing the starving artist yet again, right? We buy into all those memes. But, you know, here is an opportunity as an artist to recreate ourselves and say, like, I think, you know, I've always done a lot of volunteer work in the arts. I do a lot of my philanthropy in the arts. So I support film festivals and opera companies and things like that that appeal to me. And so I was brought in for a opera company maybe 10, 12 years ago to help them try to raise their subscriber base, sell more tickets, those, you know, survive financially, get more sponsors. And I said, well, we need to make a section of tweet seats. And they're like, tweet seats, what's that? And I'm like, we need a place where people can tweet where they're watching the show, you know, because in opera, God forbid, if you take out your phone and you were texting, I mean, this is the equivalent of raping a woman in front of her father and her children, and you know, well, and they were like, right? I mean, it was like they looked at me like I was eating spiders, you know, like, this is opera. We don't. And I say, this is the problem. Look in your program at all of the big donors, and because if you gave 50K or more, 100K or more, they gave you a full page with your picture in the program, and they, you know, did a bio thing about you. And I said, let's look at this. Here's my page. I'm the only person in this book who's under 100, right? And I'm flipping through, because there were all these, you know, 92-year-old socialites from fifth generation money who, or you know, some of them were even dead. They were literally dead, but they had established a foundation after their death to, you know. And I'm like, if you want the opera to survive, you have to get somebody who's under 50 years old to come into the goddamn theater. I bring my friends to opera and they're blown away. They're like, they're singing to 2,000 people without a microphone? How do they do that? You know, that, and they were, but if you're under 50, you have this vision of, this perception of opera in your mind. It's for old, wealthy people in tuxedos and evening gowns, and it's snobby, and you got to, you know the inside lingo. And so I'd say, you know, to everybody listening or watching right now, is that true about your art form? You know, what are we doing differently? Like, as a writer, I just say, you know, should I be serializing my book on the internet now instead of going through a New York publisher? Should, you know, because I have a new book that I want to bring out next year that I'm just wrapping up now. And I'm saying, hey, you know, with COVID and all that stuff and what's happening, you know, bookstores are shuttered. They were dying even before COVID. COVID was like the final nail in the coffin. So is it time for me to recreate myself? So I think that's a question all of us in arts need to ask right now.
I love that. So what you're saying is use our creativity really to change our own personal narrative and identity of how we think we do things.
Yeah, because is there a new way to start a dance troupe and it's in the park instead of in a theater? Is there a new way to build the theater instead of having a bunch of rows in the way it always is? Is there a way to make it a cool experience? So maybe we created this experiential theater with a circular stage, and we only had tables spaced out every 8 feet, and they were all the way around the stage, and because that would work with COVID, right? I mean, I don't know. It's just, I'm just making shit up as I go along, saying, but that's what we need to think like that.
So really, as the economy blows up and our old opportunities blow up, we blow up our old mindset and come up with something new. I love that.
Yeah, because this is where most innovation comes from. It's forced to be there. Like
Yeah.
for this opera company, I mean, I created this special mailing campaign for them, and I designed this amazing brochure and I told the story of each. I'm gonna see if I have it handy. I didn't know we would talk about this, or I would. Yeah, actually, I think I've got it. I think I'm looking at it right now.
Beautiful.
So this was, so this was a mailing that we did, and this was going to be Madame Butterfly was one of the performances, right? So I had this graphic created where I took a geisha girl and had like a Photoshop butterfly wings into her gown, and then I wrote it like a sales letter for a telenovela or a gripping murder mystery, or what, depending on what the opera was, right? So let me put my glasses on here. If we take La Traviata, right? So here's the headline I wrote: a young courtesan destined to die alone, ... Can she find redemption through the power of love? So I literally wrote a sales letter for the story of La Traviata, right? Let's see if your listeners know this one. Wicked stepsisters, a prince disguised as a servant, and the search for true love. Can a peasant girl become a princess? And of course, it was Cenerentola, which is the Cinderella story, right? A fanatical priest, a violated temple, and warring generations. Heady love meets crushing despair with two young lovers caught in the crossfire. And so that's Lakshmi, which is set in India. So it's like, so I create this whole thing and I say, let's mail this. And they're like, oh my, our readers, our subscriber, they would never, we don't send these kind of, and I'm like, I'm going to pay for it. So just send it out and prove me wrong. But I believe that humans have universal desires that we all respond to.
Yeah.
And I believe if we paint the experience of, it's like I took the director of the opera and I said, okay, we're going to do a photo shoot of you with no tuxedo. Like, no, are you crazy? I'm like, no, I want you in a shirt with no ties, with the sleeves rolled up. And because we're going to do a column from you on how anyone can come to the opera and you don't have to wear formal clothes. And, you have a pre-opera talk from somebody explaining what the program is going to be and what music to listen for. And we're going to take out that mystique, right? And they just thought I was crazy. And then we mailed it out. And it was the biggest subscription campaign, most successful one they had ever had.
Love it.
But I got to tell you, and it's only because I was a big donor who was saying, I'm going to pay for it, so you have nothing to lose.
Wow.
But if I would have been somebody working in the opera to suggest such a thing, they would have thrown them out on the street, right? God. I worked with a film festival and helped them come up with some branding to make it exciting and attractive. And the executive director said to me, but I just printed new stationery. It's like, okay, so that was what, $600? So you're going to throw away a whole, because you got $600 worth of stationery with the old logo that you want to use up? But that's how they think in a lot of nonprofit, right? And how many arts organizations are in the nonprofit space. And so there's a real dearth of creative thinking there, I think.
Yeah, well, you've just actually opened up for people who are listening so much, I guess, opportunity for them if they just change their thinking. I like your Power Prosperity podcast. That's really hard to say fast, by the way. And you had this really great one in May called Get Pissed Off. Now, I want to talk about that with you, where you talk about be a victor or be a victim? Now, right now, how easy is it to be a victim? How easy? And listening to you just tell me about what you've been doing with your volunteering work, you've been able to leverage to be able to create being a victim. So can you talk about that for arts workers, just to get in their head, you know what, I can do this?
Yeah, and for you guys who listening or watching, Power Prosperity Podcast, iTunes, Spotify, every podcast provider. It's free. I don't even have sponsors on it. There's no commercials. Just I'm sharing thoughts that I think could help you be more prosperous. So I encourage you to subscribe to that. But that's the ultimate decision we always get to in situations like this is, do I want to be a victim or do I want to be a victor? And if you want to be a victim, you have all the evidence in the world to support your position. I was in a dance company. The dance company went bankrupt. The theater closed down. I lost my job. I don't have a paycheck. I'm in quarantine, right? Okay, just know that only argue for the limitations you want to keep. So if you want to remain a victim, you keep making the argument for why you're a victim. If you want to be a victor, you're going to have to be willing to let go of being a victim and become a victor and choose and say, okay, how can I recreate myself in this new reality? You know, for me, a lot of my income is speaking because I write books. People want to hear the author speak. So I'm used to speaking to 6,000 people, 10,000 people. I get paid a lot of money to do that. And then February, boom, within a 10-day period, I lost almost $1 million worth of business, evaporated just in 10 days. And I thought, my God, where do I go from it? And it was really easy to slide into victimhood, right? And then I just started saying, okay, how can I add value? How can I solve problems? How do I need to reconfigure what it is I do? And so I started doing virtual presentations. And now all of us, instead of 6,000 people where I was, I had a thing in Norway, it's going to be 6,000 people. Well, we moved it virtual and it ended up being for like 20,000 people, because then they had all their distributors around the world, even the ones who weren't going to be in Norway, were watching online. I did another one for a company in LATAM, 15,000 people, but the most of what I'm doing these days is in a Zoom room like this with 5 people or 7 people. And it's the CEO and the VP and the executive team. And we're talking strategy. And so that wasn't really, if I had a business card per se, which I don't, that wasn't really one of the things on my business card, right? But they basically are hiring me still to be a critical thinker. So instead of speaking to 6,000 people, sometimes I'm talking to 6. But I found new ways to create, and now I'm busier now than I was before COVID. So I'm really glad that I chose not to stay a victim, that I chose to say, hey, how can I redo that? And so whether you're a musician or a sculptor or an actor or wherever you are in the arts, and I guess most of the people here are more music, right? It's like you're going to have to look at the platforms like, now what's the name of that one? Where you get people subscribe to you.
So Spotify, iTunes.
No, it's what's it? If it doesn't come to me, you guys Google Amanda Carpenter. Amanda Carpenter is an author. It's a different Amanda. It's like a sponsor thing where people subscribe to you with money, where they say, okay, I'm going to.
Patreon? You mean like that?
Yes, Patreon is the one I'm trying to think of.
There you go.
So there's people that have never looked at Patreon because you're saying, hey, I just want to be an artist. Well, guess what? The world might say, well, that ain't good enough. If you want to be an artist, you're also like, as an author, I mean, I have friends like Stephen Pressfield, who's another author, right? He writes a book and it comes out. He doesn't even put a goddamn tweet about it, right? Because he's a writer and he's busy locked in his lonely writer's garret writing his next book. And I guess he's built enough market gravity, enough of a body of work, a body of followers that he can just put out a book and enough people go buy it. Me, I'm like, listen, a publisher gives me an advance. They bet on me. I want to, you know, I'm just, this next book will be my 14th one. No publisher in the world has ever lost money on me, and I don't want that to ever start, right? So, I got a book come out. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm doing Facebook Lives telling people about the book. Just, you know, The Rock goes on Jimmy Kimmel and promotes his new movie. It's part of the game today. So if you choose to say, well, I am just an artist and I want to be in my monastery sculpting urns and taking donations from the villagers, okay, I don't have any problem with that. Just don't bitch about it if you chose that, right? But if you say, well, I don't really want to live in a monastery and just take alms from the villagers, I'd actually like to have a nice apartment and maybe a car and be able to go to the movies and the theater and, you know, go out to eat. Then you got to say, well, I need to be, there's nobody in the world who can promote my work better than I can. So I need to do, I mean, I've seen some people doing table reads on, you know, Zoom platforms that they're sharing with people, right? And there's just cool stuff like that, that I've seen writers roundtables on live streams where they get the writers for a particular show and then they open it up to people. We have to think about stuff like that and say, how do I become my own broadcast network? Because the truth is, this iPhone in my hand has the camera, the HD camera that's the equivalent of what used to cost $250,000 that Martin Scorsese would use to film a movie, right? $250,000, that camera is now included in an iPhone or a Galaxy right now. People are making whole movies on iPhones. People have, you know, what social media and technology allows us is the opportunity to go direct to our tribe and connect with them, build that tribe, connect with them, and excuse me. And then if we're being clever, find a way to monetize that so we can continue to do our art.
We have everything we need right now, don't we? You have just actually, the way that you've articulated it, I think it really is going to help so many arts workers, whether it's musicians or filmmakers or anyone who works in events, to be able to pivot this. You're right. We can actually be our own media, be our own social media person. We've got, I mean, you're so active on Twitter. I can see you engaging with people all the time. You're having conversations with people, having that engagement. And that's really the beginning of the relationship, isn't it? When it comes to
it is, and the thing that shocks people is, if I wasn't a writer, you wouldn't find me on social media for life. Okay, there's not a chance in the world I would be on social media, because I'm that happiest guy hunched over my laptop in my lonely writer's garret writing my next book. I'm not a social person. I'm extremely introverted, and I'm a loner. So for me, quarantine, non-quarantine, they're pretty much the same thing.
That's your happy place.
Right? So, but because I'm a writer, because I write stuff that I want people to read, I get on social media and I do broadcast and I do engage and I do podcasts like this one you invited me to do, which I think that's the choice we all have to make. And then the artistic vision that we all have to have is how to create the right ratio of creating our art and promoting our art, right? Because nobody wants to spend 10 hours a day promoting their art. You just feel like a hack, right? But if you say, okay, I can write for 8 hours a day and promote for 1 hour a day and get my work out there. Well, and they say, well, I'm just starting out. Nobody knows me. I have no Twitter followers, no Instagram followers, no TikTok, okay, great. So you're going to need a bigger ratio of promotion when you begin. And the truth is, that's how it worked with me. I didn't have a lot of market gravity when my first book came out. I didn't have lists, so I was more in the promo mode. And as I built my body of work over the years, then I'm able to spend more time on the creative development and less time on the promotion. But that's really, I think in pandemic times like this, that's really the thinking that everybody in the art space wants to be doing right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just how, Spotify and these other platforms have allowed musicians to go direct to their tribe.
Oh, yeah.
There's lessons there. If when I grew up, I went to see Deep Purple and Uriah Heep and Edgar Winter and the Doobie Brothers and whatever. And they did those concerts to sell records. Because when they went out on tour, then they sold records and they made their money from selling records. But if you look at today, they make the money from the concerts. They pretty much streaming the records for free almost, just getting it out there, knowing that even today, last month was supposed to be the tour with Def Leppard and Motley Crue and Poison, that I had tickets that I paid $2,000 for, right? And it got bumped to 2021. But a tour like that, not one of those groups has had a top 40 hit in decades. Okay, but that tour will take in probably hundreds of millions of dollars. And because they're going to make the money on the ball caps and the sweatshirts and the t-shirts and the other swag, and the model changes, and everybody watching this, you got to say the same thing. Okay, how has the model has changed? How can either I shut up, be a victim, and I go take a job as a plumber and say, well, I had a music career and then COVID killed it, and I can be a victim the rest of my life telling everybody that I would have been a great famous musician until COVID happened. Or you say, how do I reconfigure? How do I reframe this? How do I change with the new model so I can still continue to do the work that I love?
The model has changed, everyone. That is just wonderful. And I think I'm watching your blog all the time and you're sharing it on Twitter. And I think if everyone can follow you on Twitter, check in with your Power Prosperity podcast. I said it again. Check in with your blog and just watch what you're doing. I think it will really help them to find their prosperity, stay in that victor mentality, and find a way to be able to leverage this and create their own economy. So that was Randy, thank you so much for that. I think you've given people in our industry some really great ways to shift that mindset. So wow, thank you so much.
Yeah, great to be with you. And hey, all you struggling musicians out there, I'm with you. I know, I'm not a musician, but I was a struggling writer and a struggling lot of other things. So I empathize with you. But again, you could be the victim, you could be a victor. Just make the choice. Hey, it's a new reality. So I can create any subscription model I want, any sponsorship model I want, any performance model I want, any direct streaming model I want. I have all the technology, audio, video, print, any way that I want to connect with my tribe. There's possibilities for me to do that, and I'm going to choose to do that and just make that choice.
Beautiful. Randy Gage, thank you so much. Everyone, make sure you follow this man. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. Take care.
Peace.
Thank you.